Happy Halloween, everybody! And we are now on to the very last episode of this season. And so, last year we closed out last year's season with the original version of this movie. Now, ironically, we're going to close out this year's season with not only just the remake, but also the very film that pretty much kickstarted off a legendary director's career. Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I am here with our final episode of Halloween Horror Movie Reviews 5. And this episode is going to be for another George A. Romero remake, and it's for the one from 2004, the Dawn of the Dead remake, which was the first film directed by legendary director Zach Snyder. Yeah, the first film he had directed, who would later go on to direct films like 300, Watchmen, so the DCEU, some of them, like Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, the Snyder cut of Justice League, Sucker Punch, and Legend of the Guardians. What is the plot of this film? Well, this nurse named Anna goes home to her peaceful suburban residence, but she is unpleasantly surprised the morning that falls when her husband is brutally attacked by her zombified neighbor. In the chaos of her once picturesque neighborhood, Anna flees and stumbles upon this police officer named Kenneth. Along with some more survivors, they go to their best chance of survival in this deserted crossroads shopping mall. However, though, their supplies eventually do start to run low, and there's other trapped survivors that need help, so the group comes to the realization that they cannot stay put in that mall forever, and they have to devise a plan to escape to find some other place of refuge during this whole entire zombie attack. So, how was this film made? Well, there were plans to remake 1978's Dawn of the Dead by producer Eric Newman, who was a fan of zombie films and decided that George A. Romero horror film was the best of the genre. With the remake, Eric Newman and other producer Mark Abraham, they wanted to reinvent the zombie genre from our audiences, as well as make the old fans happy and make a lot of new fans for the genre. So Newman and Abraham brought the rights to Dawn of the Dead from its producer, rights holder Richard A. Rubinstein, who was reluctant at first as he was concerned that pretty much a studio would sanitize Newman's vision for producing this version with attitude. And then pretty much it was Mark Abrams' long track record keeping the integrity of the studio, according to him. They gave him the reason to say yes, and so Newman hired a writer at the time, James Gunn, to write the script, and the studio bought James Gunn despite not wanting to deliver them a signal idea for the film beforehand. And apparently because James Gunn was a fan of the original Dawn of the Dead since he was a young boy, he explained he took the job because he kind of saw generally what it could really be when he would be writing the script for the film. And the producers came up with the remake as more of a re-envisioning of the film, and that would work with some references to the original, but also work in kind of its own terms. The co-producer Eric Newman cited films like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, The Thing, The Fly, as influences to the remake. And by respect to Romero's film, producers also cast some of the originals actors like Tom Savini, Scott Ragnar, and Ken Forey in some cameos. And they incorporated visual references to Galen Ross and James A. Baffico. Eventually, after this version of Dawn of the Dead was shot and marketed, Dawn of the Dead 2004 would go on to release theatrically on March 19th, 2004 by Universal Pictures. And sadly, despite George A. Romero not liking the movie and hating it, I know I kind of said in that when I did that best remakes list years ago that George A. Romero would probably love the remake if he saw it. Apparently there was one YouTuber who commented that actually said that George A. Romero did see it and hated it. And then I realized that, so yeah, that's when I found out that George A. Romero actually did see it, and he did not like it. And may George A. Romero rest in peace, but I would have to kind of disagree with him. I'll get to that later. But guess what, guys? Despite being a horror remake of a classic film, this was actually a rare horror remake to actually get positive reviews from critics. They saw this movie as an improvement over the original, some saw it as improvements over the original with acting, production values, and scares, while they also felt lacked character development, was excessively gory, and indifferent to George A. Romero's version. And Dawn of the Dead was a commercial success also. It made $1 or $2 million worldwide on a $26 million budget. And for a while was actually quite a bit profitable for the zombie genre until Zombieland overtook it and then World War Z overtook it. And of course we all know what apparently the film that he did on Zach Snyder did on Netflix, Army of the Dead, is apparently considered a spiritual successor. I have not watched those films yet, so I can't say anything about them. Well, as for my reaction, well, much like the Night of the Living Dead remake that was the earlier review, this is also a really good remake, but is it as good as the 1978 movie? You know what? I'm just gonna take the mask off for this part so people can hear me more. But yeah, you guys know my costume. That's my Halloween costume. It's Chucky. Whatever. I don't need to keep the mask on for this, so I can talk more clear. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep the mask off for the rest of you. But anyways, much like the Night of the Living Dead remake, this is also a good remake, but definitely not as good as the 1978 Dawn of the Dead. It is a step down from the 1978 original. That is definitely kind of true. But it is still a good remake, especially because this was the very movie that kickstarted Zack Snyder as a filmmaker. Pretty much it deals with stuff like how would mankind behave in the end of times? Or turn into raving lunatics and attack one another, or try to slavishly hold on to fabric, or kick back and accept what's happening? Well, Dawn of the Dead tries to answer those questions. Like, this film is a remake of the classic 1978, which some people consider a somewhat sequel to Night of the Living Dead. You throw this group of people together, much like the original, society crumbles around them, and you allow the viewer to watch as humans seek to survive this onslaught of the undead. The plot is pretty straightforward, and it relies on like cliche themes to move the story along. So you have like films such as some films like this do tend to be a little predictable, a little tepid at times, but Dawn of the Dead has strong personalities to fall back on, and you make it like every bit of character-driven drama as also kind of a horror action masterpiece. So when it comes to Anna, Sarah Polley convincingly plays this well-turned survivor who literally just has the right amount of emotions. She's strong and vulnerable at the same moment and trying to remain reasonable on reasonable times. However, also does fit the ball as Michael, who's this man with this past full of regret, tries to fill others with hope while remaining a stark bit realistic. And also you got Vin Rames as Kenneth. Vin Rames' performance really commands the most attention. He becomes the group's de facto leader and top man of action. He keeps the clearest head when trouble's afoot, and he pretty much leads the group of one scrape after another. Vin Rames really does give this character a sound strength that provides the film with a much needed human edge. And of course, let's not forget the direction of the movie. First-time director at the time this came out, Zack Snyder, who had gone to direct many other films, really does well in moving the film along briskly and effectively. He keeps the action scenes tight, the dramatic scenes very quiet. There's you don't get too much heavy-handed sermonizing. That in fairway, it's a lot of big-budget horror films, and Zack Snyder really lets the images speak for themselves. Right here, this was a guy who would later directed films like Watchmen, or some Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice, or the Snyder Cut of Justice League, his original cut of Justice League, until Joss Whedon and Warner Bros. Fucked that up. Then again, they fuck up. Then again, Warner Bros. Is known to fuck up a lot of his things. But yeah, this guy did actually quite a few major budgeted films right after he directed this film. So this was a nice way to kickstart this director's career off with a bang. So how does this remake start off? Well, it is kind of the same concept and the plot of the original film, but we meet our main character Anna, played by Sarah Polley, who has just finished a long shift as a nurse in the Milwaukee area. She returns to her neighborhood and her husband Lewis. Then she gets caught in a scheduled date night, and they end up ignoring this emergency news bulletin that's playing on in the background. Then the next morning, though, they find the neighborhood all zombified, and this one girl enters her bedroom and kills Lewis, who then reanimates and attacks Anna. She flees to her car, crashes, and then passes out as she's passing through several other neighbors, either trying to find help or trying to flee, or all zombified and attacking other homes. So after passing out, she awakens and joins this police sergeant Kenneth Hall, an electronic salesman Michael, or petty criminal Andre and his pregnant wife Luda, and They break into the mall, they get attacked by a zombified security guard who scratches Luda, and three living guards who are CJ, Bart, and Terry. They force them to give up their weapons so they can have refuge. They split into groups to secure the mall. They see one other survivor named Andy, who is pretty much stranded at his gun store across a zombified parking lot. And the group then notices this military helicopter flying overhead. They try to get the pilot's attention, but that pretty much fails. And like when it comes to the main titles are fine, but the problem with the main titles, they picked the wrong song choice. Instead of like picking, because it's a grim opening titles. Dawn of the Dead's not a happy movie. Dawn of the Dead's a pretty grim movie. But of all the songs they had to pick for the main titles, you picked Johnny Cash's When the Man Comes Around. I did not like that song choice. That's really not that bleak of a song. Like, Dawn of the Dead, this is supposed to be a bleak opening title sequence. You think they'd pick a bleak song. Because, like, this is supposed to be like a bleak opening title sequence. It shows that the world's ending. The zombie apocalypse is starting. You know, the world's falling apart. They should have picked a better song choice. Like, something that's not, like, optimistic. The Man Comes Around's not really that depressing of a song to me. But that's just me. But the horror itself, though, is shocking, and it grabs your attention as soon as the movie starts. Like, especially considering, like, most of the crop of thrillers around the time this came out, like, it's pretty much happening to sympathetic characters that you care about right here. And Zack Snyder's remake, like, it's not, like, just a rehash of George A. Romero's movie. It's not, like, a shot-for-shot version of George A. Romero. No. It offers this very different take on the source material, and it definitely, you can tell this definitely deserves kind of the praise of God, because it's kind of its own merits. It's got this it's a nice little entertaining entry in the horror zombie subgenre. And James Gunn, like, who later go on to direct Guardians of the Galaxy, and is, well, the Suicide Squad, and is now pretty much gonna fuck over DC with his shitty universe and that shitty Superman movie that I don't want to watch. But this was back when he didn't do that stuff, back when he was actually cool, back when he was actually awesome. James Gunn's script is actually pretty funny throughout, though. You do get some nice little comedy moments, and there's not really a dull moment in it. And when Dawn of the Dead 2004 does brilliantly, like, this one, you actually focus a little more on the characters. All the characters in the remake are fun to watch, like, even the supporting characters, and even somewhat the assholes, too. Like, they're all colorful, they're not just, like, one-note characters, they actually do get their own little story arcs. The Gunn's script is kind of lighter on kind of the social commentary of the original film. It's not, like, dumb, though. The story beats are definitely interesting and unpredictable to really keep the viewer invested throughout the movie. When you get to, like, as soon as this movie starts, like, the movie lets you know what kind of film you're about to see. And then it takes on this wild thrill ride filled with awesome gore, good character development, explosive action, amazing visuals. So, after our survivors get to the mall, and they seek refuge, they surrender their weapons, a delivery truck comes by the next day carrying more survivors, and it enters the lot and the zombies pursue it. CJ and Bart don't want them in, and want to turn them away to avoid more zombies coming into the mall. But they get overruled by the survivors and disarmed. So the newcomers are basically the characters of Norma, Steve Tucker, Monica, Glenn, Frank and his daughter Nicole. There's other woman with them that's apparently ill to walk, so she gets wheeled through a wheelbarrow. But sadly, though, she dies and reanimates. But after she gets killed, though, the group then starts to determine that the disease was pretty much passed by bites. Andre then goes to see Luda, who pretty much kept her scratch hidden from the group, and then they realize by then Frank is long bitten and is now a threat. So Frank elects to be isolated, but then he dies in turn, so Kenneth shoots him, and then after that, Kenneth and Andy, they do start to have a bit of a friendship with messages written on this whiteboard, so that's a pretty nice little moment right there. This little whiteboard they write on to pretty much communicate with the survivors kind of what's going on, or communicate with the viewer in a way. Anna and Michael do kind of butt this bit of a romance, and Nicole and Terry do as well, and you even do get this little montage, like, of the characters kind of having fun in the mall, whether they're kind of like, one guy's like literally trying to test out these girly heels right there, and So it's just kind of a funny moment. I think it's like the older priest guy who's like testing out the girly, testing out the heels on his feet, and some of them are even watching this like little comedic dark comedy zombie show, and they're getting to the wide-eyed shot of this horse, and or like there's a little montage of them kind of like playing with all the gadgets they have left in the mall there, and right there. So I do like we get this nice little montage there, like. You kind of do get to know like the characters kind of bonding in the mall together, kind of having a little bit of last bit of fun they can have left in the mall before they all pretty much get killed by the zombies. And eventually, though, the power in the mall goes out, and the 3 security guards and Kenneth, they go to the parking garage so they can go activate the emergency generator. Then they find this dog named Chips. But then they start to worry about this little breach. Then zombies attacking to kill Bart. So the others now have to douse the zombies in gas and set them ablaze. And Luda, though, gets tied up by Andre, who she ends up giving birth, and then she kind of dies because she's infected. But since she's infected, though, she does reanimate. When Norma goes to check on the couple, and then Norma kills the zombified Luda, and then Andre then immediately snaps, and they both get killed and they exchange gunfire. Then the others though after that, so they're out of the picture. The others then find this zombie infant. They kill the zombie infant immediately before it can attack them, before it can grow into a real zombie. And the group now decides that they kind of have to fight their way to the local marina, and they have to travel on Steve's yacht to the Ty Burrell's character to this island on Lake Michigan. And then their plan to get there is that they reinforce these 2 shuttle buses from the parking garage with like pretty much like protective stuff from the zombies. They can break through, so they can drive it like through closed gates in order for their escape from the mall before the zombies all raid it. Like, Zach Snyder did really good in putting effort into this remake. His remake starts like, you start off typically with a happy little slope. You have to start off a zombie movie with a happy little slope. But then you see the girl who's a zombie, and we all know that things are not going to lighten up from there. Things are going to get crazier, things are going to get more intense, but they're also going to get better from there. I like how Zach really keeps the film's plot the same storyline, where there are many survivors trapped in a mall, and there's zombies trying to get in. Like, you do see the elements of this adaptation that can be totally favorably compared to the George A. Romero film. I mean, the George A. Romero film is still the better movie, but this is also actually kind of just as good. Kind of like it's not like a bastardization. You can tell it was done by the right hands. And I do like that you do get to see a little more survivors this time, and it's excellent to see that you can see what each survivor is kind of going through. Some that are determined to get out of the mess, or some that are stubborn, and one just really being an idiot. So it's nice to have a variety of smart and dumb-witted characters. Not just like dumb characters you want to die, or not just overly smart characters that make the film not fun to watch. No, you get a mix of kind of both. You get a mix of smart, likable, and you get a mix of dumb, but also kind of fun to watch. Kind of fun to watch, love to hate characters right there. It's a perfect balance for a zombie film. And this one, though, the original, because 28 Days Later not come out yet, the zombies were normal zombies who just walk. The walking zombies, like, anybody could easily outrun. Because they're not gonna, if you can outrun them, like, you can, the only way to get killed by a normal walking zombie is if you just don't run and you just stay there. Or there's too many of them. But a normal walking zombie, you can outrun those. No. These zombies, because like this came out around the time 28 Days Later had reinvented the zombie genre, had revived a new kind of thing. Running zombies. And Dawn of the Dead, this version keeps up that trend. And honestly, I think running zombies are much scarier when they're running and screaming, and it's much hard, and it makes it much harder to escape them. Dawn of the Dead, the zombies in that one you could easily escape. These ones in this remake, you cannot. And they've because the whole entire film, they're in huge numbers. And in one of the last sequences where the characters are trying to escape, once they get to the mall, the zombies outside get bigger and bigger as the movie progresses, to the point where it's there's no escape out of that mall through the parking lot. They are all swarming that parking lot, waiting for anybody to come out. And the movie accomplishes exactly what it sets out to do. It's actually a pretty scary movie. There's some comedic elements, but it's still just as scary as that, or even somewhat scarier than the 1978 original movie. while also still being highly entertained. So now that Andy is trapped, the group decides to try to rescue Andy, so they stretch supplies onto Chip's body. One of the survivors is really worried about the dog, but one reassures that the dog will be fine because the zombies don't want the dog. They want the humans. They're not after the dogs. So they lower Chip's body into a parking lot, and because like predicted, the zombies that's not a person. We don't want that. So then Chip's able to enter Andy's store safely. But though, however, despite that they don't want Chips, a zombie pretty much now notices that little trap door, and so it falls through the dog door. And one of them does kind of make a stupid choice, and she's worried about Chips and too much, so she takes a delivery truck, crashes into the gun store, and now zombified Andy traps her. So are less survivors left, Kenneth, Michael, Tucker, Terry, CJ. They go to the gun store for the sewers. They kill the zombified Andy and they rescue Nicole. So Nicole doesn't die, but dear God, Nicole. Really, the dog is fine. The guy told, one of those survivors told you, they don't want the dog. They just want people. Oh my God, the dog is fine. Wow, and that turned out to be true because the blood they're reading on the radio is literally from Andy himself, who got bitten by them. Seriously, wow, this girl almost dooms the whole game by that almost one moment. But they rescue Nicole, and they rescue Chips. Chips thankfully doesn't get killed at the very least. At least the dog doesn't die. So they grab all the weapons and they go back to the mall. Tucker, though, breaks his legs on the way, and so CJ now has to shoot him out of mercy. Right there, and you can tell CJ doesn't really want to do it, but knows he has no choice because either Tucker can die peacefully or be left there and be infected, or pretty much to become a zombie like the other zombies. So he shoots him out of mercy, pretty much to avoid the much more horrific fate. Then they're unable to lock the door though once again inside, and so they immediately now have to board the buses. So, yeah, like I've already mentioned before, there's already quite a few scenes of solid character building. You get major characters turning to real individuals, and the supporting cast are also pretty good here. You got quite a few big names in here. They got Kevin Zegers and Ty Burrell and among many others too, Sarah Pauli, Vin Rames. You have quite a few good actors in this remake. There's also a lot of cool bits that, even some cool bits may be filler, but it's exciting and interesting filler. It actually kind of makes the remake a little more exciting, not just trying to be like the original movie. It's trying to make somewhat more exciting version, because this is a 2000s horror film. And not just trying to repeat 1978 again. And guess what? Another thing, some of the cast in the original movie made cameos. You got Ken Faree, who played Peter in the original film. This one, he plays a televangelist, who pretty much says the tagline in both films. And you got Tom Savini, who was one of George A. Romero's best friends, who's a special FX guru, who played a biker in the original movie. He now plays a sheriff who figures out a way to kill the zombies. And the gruesome but excellent makeup sets, they really set the standard of classic directing. The story really focuses on another side too. It's not just about the zombies. It's not about the social commentary of the original film, which that was also very equally good. This one you do get a little bit more about the survivors. You do get some more survivors. Most of the original, they kind of focus more on these 3 security guards or a few cops. This one, you get a few more survivors. You get some normal, ordinary human beings in this remake. So it's nice to see these human stories develop, and and also nice to see a little montage of them having one last little bit of fun with some of the remaining stuff in that mall. Even whether it's watching TV, whether it's kind of ironically trying on some girly shoes and. Right there, and you do get some nice scenes of them bonding, when they're eating dinner and stuff, or when they're shouting. You do get a little. It kind of despite the zombie apocalypse that's taken outside that mall, you do get a little scenes of them still trying to live some normal lives in that mall. Right there, so I really like what Zach Snyder did with the characters in this. And I think like even the hell, you know what? Even the rude people in this movie are actually fun to watch. Even the assholes are entertaining. Like some of them are even like Ty Burrell's character. Ty Burrell's kind of a love to hate entertaining asshole. Yeah, like Ty Burrell's in this movie's a prick, but he's honestly just so fun to watch. Right there. So yeah, he's kind of like a prick you actually enjoy watching. In a way. Now, that being said, this is a good remake, but another one of the problems I have is, well, we get to the finale now, and I was a little mixed on this finale, to be honest. So, once the group navigates through the city, on the bus, Glenn sadly loses control of the chainsaw, and so Monica and himself get killed, and the blood gets on the windshield, and the bus crashes. Steve tries to leave the group, gets a stowaway zombie, kills him. And now our three remaining characters left, like CJ, Kenneth, and Terry. They're looking for survivors. No, not three remaining characters, actually. Never mind. Not three remaining characters. Some of them. So they look for survivors. Anna now has to kill the zombified Steve and retrieves his boat keys. And then they get to the marina. They get to the boats, but CJ sees that he's bitten, so he tells him he can't go. Anna's sad about that, but he tells him that he can't go with them, so he stays behind, and he does pull off the heroic sacrifice, and so that the others can escape. And Michael reveals he's been bitten, so he can't go with them. So Anna, Kenneth, Nicole, Terry, and Chip. So it's not like just one sole survivor. You do get some survivors at the very least. So they and the dog, they get on the yacht, and Michael pretty much shoots himself, and that is where the credits roll. So you think maybe they would decently end the movie there, right? Well, not fully, because you do get footage from this camcorder that got found on the boat that pretty much showed all the escapees before, like Steve's escapees before the outbreak, and right there, and it concludes like when the group runs out of supplies, approaches an island, gets attacked by a swarm of zombies, and the camcorder drops. And I wish like the movie just I just wish the movie would have just ended with the survivors fleeing and Michael shooting himself, and that would have just been a nice enough ending. We didn't really need that bonus scene right there. Like Michael just sacrificing himself was a nice way to end the film and just leave it there. You don't need a post-credits bit. It would have been a nice bittersweet ending. Like, you know what? Even the 1978 original movie ended way better. It didn't have have a sudden little downer bit in the ending. So that does right there lead us into the bad qualities. So since for bad qualities of this remake, this is a remake, so there's not really anything really new or unique about the movie, except like maybe there's now running zombies, and the aspect of the apocalypse is accentuated more. Like, you do have like long quiet scenes followed by a loud scare, gruesome deaths, and still some comic relief that's actually entertaining, and all the ingredients to make a good zombie movie. But like the post-credit scene almost kind of just doesn't fit in the film. The zombie baby bit really went nowhere, so it was kind of unnecessary, and they could have made more of that sequence. Instead, like, it's a zombie baby, and it just gets shot after it gets introduced. Right there. And, why this... and the explosion in the end, do get a little bit too much over the top, and the people in the trucks definitely would have survived that kind of detonation. And also, the opening credit scene, they could have picked a better song. You did not need the Johnny Cash song, because that doesn't really feel that bleak and hopeless. And, this opening credit scene was supposed to be a bleak and hopeless montage. It was meant to show the world ending. The Man Comes Around feels like a bit of a weird choice, in a way. You should have picked a song that was a little more bleak. In a way, that would have made the opening credits a little more chilling. But that's just me, though. So, other than those, I did enjoy the Dawn of the Dead remake. It's another pretty good remake. Yeah, sure, maybe George A. Romero hated it, but this was still quite an equally good film. And I am going to say George A. Romero's film is definitely better. though, but this is also pretty good. It's a nice way for, it was definitely a nice kickstart career for Zack Snyder. So, in the end, Dawn of the Dead, 2004, much like the also great 1978, is also totally worth buying with that original film for your collection if you want to see the film that kickstarted Zack Snyder's career, and also see another great modern zombie movie, and actually a remake that doesn't shit on the original's legacy. Anyways, guys, that's it for my review of Dawn of the Dead 2004, and if you're wondering how to rate Dawn of the Dead 2004, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you are a fan of the 1978 original and want to see how Zack Snyder's career started as a whole, then you would totally give this movie a watch and buy for your collection next to the 1978 original film, no doubt. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rate Dawn of the Dead 2004, I'm going to give Dawn of the Dead 2004 an 8 out of 10. There we go, guys. Not only does that wrap up my review for the remake of Dawn of the Dead, but that also sadly wraps up Halloween Horror Movie Reviews Season 5. This went by a little faster than usual. I'm gonna have to say that, but you know what? This was not a bad season. I gotta say, this was not a bad season, and now I want to know in the comments down below what you guys thought of Dawn of the Dead 2004, whether you like the original better, whether you also like this movie better, or whether you like both, whether you also think this is a good remake, or whether you want a few rare people that doesn't like this remake. And I too want to know how your Halloween went, whether Halloween started in your area, what's your plans for Halloween, or if Halloween already ended in your area, depending on your time zone. How your Halloween went, what you guys did. You know, and what you guys dressed up as. And usually, like, Halloween's already kind of starting in my area, so right there. So you're wondering what I'm gonna do. Well, work in costume as usual. And what else can I think of? Then after that, gonna go out like I usually like to on Halloween. Obviously not trick-or-treating because I'm too old for that, and then go watch a horror film in the theaters. Maybe I'll reluctantly go watch Smell 2, or you know what? Maybe I'll go watch Terrifier 3 again. Watch something actually good. And of course, so yeah, this is the character I'm dressing up as for Halloween. Now, yeah, and I'm going to put this on. I'm going to close off Halloween Horror Reviews 5 with this. With me saying that will be it for this. That'll be it for this year's Halloween Horror Movie Reviews. Thank you all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone. Happy Halloween, everybody. And I will see you all, and I will see you spooky galls next year. Goodbye, everybody.